Welcome to Beyond Anger Management Workshop, Part 1. Before we get into communication skills in Part 1, let's do a recap of what we already covered in our introductory video. Our anger is a gift, not a curse, or something that causes shame. We can manage how we respond when we become angry. Our anger empowers us to do good in our world. And we were challenged to rise above our dualism, where we only have two boxes for everything, and enhance all of our relationships. Okay, Part 1, communication skills. Language that de-escalates anger and language that escalates anger. We're going to look at this concept throughout the workshop about de-escalating our anger to make it manageable. Communication tools for verbal language and body language. Many years ago I was doing this workshop and I had a fellow that was sitting in the front row, and when we got to this part about body language, he rolled his eyes and I saw it. And I said to him, "What?" He said, "Father Ed," he said, "that body language is a bunch of psychobabble." He said, "It's what you say that's important." And I said, "Oh, really?" And I walked over and I stood real close to him and looked down at him as he was sitting in his chair. And I said, "I haven't changed the tone of my voice whatsoever, and I'm not changing what I'm saying. But I've changed my body language with you. How do you feel?" He kind of chuckled. I think he got the message. So let's look at this verbal language and body language. Communication skills, de-escalating our anger. Here's the first tool, so get your tool bags out. We don't interrupt. We wait until the other person has finished speaking before we start talking. When you're angry, stop and think. When you're upset with someone, do you interrupt their talk? I know I do sometimes. You know what we're doing when we interrupt someone? I know it's not on purpose. But this is the message that we're sending them subconsciously. Shut up. What I have to say is more important than what you're saying right now. If someone were to say that to you out loud, that would be very upsetting. Well, our interrupting does the same thing, but it's at a subconscious level. So the first tool is we don't interrupt. We listen and avoid the temptation to think about what we're going to say next. So often when we get angry, we think about what we're going to say next rather than really listening to what the person is saying. Remember, we have one mouth and two ears for a good reason. But what happens if they keep on talking? Let them. Let them keep talking. They will finish sooner or later. And this won't take 1, 2, maybe 3 times at the most. And you'll notice the difference in how your conversations go. So they keep on talking and they keep on talking and they keep on talking. And finally they look at you and they say, "What?" You say, "Well, are you finished? Can I say something?" "Yeah, go ahead." And you start to talk and they interrupt you. Shh, shut up. Don't say anything. Let them interrupt you. And then they talk and talk and talk. And then you wait and wait and wait. And then they're finished and you start to talk again. And they interrupt you again. You might want to just drop your head. And they'll say, "What?" Say, "I'm just letting you finish saying what you want to say." Do that 2 or 3 times, and I think you'll notice a difference in your conversation when you are angry. It's a wonderful tool. And remember, when you're interrupting, you might be getting a message. Warning, warning, warning. Your anger is escalating. Another tool. No idea or opinion is on trial. Remember, in the introductory video, we talked about this concept of dualism. Well, a court of law is dualistic. In a criminal court of law, we're looking for either innocent or guilty. But ideas and opinions are not on trial. You see, When we become dualistic, we leave no room for others to have opinions that are different than our own. About 10 years ago, I was picking up a homeless guy from the hospital. As I drove up, I saw him arguing with another homeless man, that they were both very upset. I jumped out of the car and I got in between them and said, "Hey, how you guys doing?" The fellow I was picking up said to me, "Father Ed, this guy's an idiot. He's a Redskins fan." They were arguing about which team was better. There was a wall between them. So I said to the other fellow, "What do you like about the Redskins?" And he told me. And I said to him, "Do you like going to the home games when they're in town?" He told me he did. Then I turned to the other fellow and said, "How about you, John? Do you like going to the games when the Ravens are in town?" Turned out they both loved football, and a bridge was built between them by finding what they held in common rather than their opinions that separated them. No idea or opinion is on trial. Next tool. What do you see in this picture? Do you see a bird? Do you see a goat? What's the right answer? Maybe you see both. And why is it that some see a bird while others see a goat? Maybe this explains our question. It's all a matter of perspective, isn't it? So the next time you're in a heated argument with someone, ask yourself this question. Is the difference I'm experiencing a matter of perspective? Or better yet, ask yourself, what is their perspective? Do they see things differently than I do? And if so, what is the difference? Once we grasp this concept that many things have more than two boxes, and that many things in life, especially ideas and opinions, are merely a matter of perspective, we begin to think of our own ideas and opinions with a little more humility. So the next tool we're going to look at is how we start off conversations where there might be other perspectives other than our own. We begin our sentences with I statements. I feel that. I believe that. I think that. What's going on here is that we're sending a subconscious message saying, I feel, I believe, I think that, but I could be wrong. So talk to me. This builds a bridge in the conversation by expressing a desire to know how they feel, believe, or think. On the other hand, when we begin our sentence with you instead of I feel, think, or believe, it builds a wall in the conversation and between you and the other person. You can feel accusatory. You puts the other person in a defensive mode, which encourages them to self-protect and build a wall. Next tool, body language. There are two uses of body language: interpreting, reading the other person's body language, and intending, using our own body language to de-escalate our anger. Hear me now, okay? We all read body language, but the difference between the way I've been trained to read body language and that the way you probably do is that I do it consciously and you do it subconsciously. That, my friends, makes a major difference for us when we're moving from feelings-based behavior to thinking-based behavior. You see, it's not as important that your interpretation of that language is correct as it is that you're thinking about it consciously. Remember, cognitive behavior begins with thinking. So let's think about what these bodies are saying. What do you observe in their body language? Stop and just look at their hands, their eyes, their stance. Can you imagine a scenario here? Is she upset? What makes you think so? What is he feeling? Why do you think that? Is he irate? If so, what makes you think so? What's going on in this family dynamic? What is dad doing? What about mom? And look at the son. His body is screaming. What is it saying? Is this a happy couple? What makes you think so? We develop an eye for body language. As we observe their body language, as we interpret body language, we think about what it is saying. Body language that escalates anger. Let's take a moment and look at this couple. Look at the dynamics and see what you interpret as what's going on. We are rigid and confrontational. We don't indicate that we're listening. We may violate the other person's space, and we turn away while the other person is talking. Well, that concludes our part 1. Let's do our quiz. True or false? We all use at least 2 languages. True or false? Use statements make people feel accused. True or false? De-escalating anger means we lower its intensity.